Hi again then guys, and welcome to another installment of Pick of the Pack on Gran Turismo 6. Not much online time now as of the release of this video for the Gran Turismo 6 servers, so if you plan to race online, get it in there as quick as you can because we've only got a month left before those servers shut down. And so, today, carrying on from the GTR earlier on in Forza 3, we're on a bit of a GTR kick today. I hadn't planned to, but these two videos happen to both be GTRs without planning it that way, so I thought let's keep it going and have a GTR day. So with that in mind, this pick of the pack is going to be a little bit different, because to be fair, I had not planned to do a pick of the pack episode for this car, the R35 GTR, because as I said way earlier on, in fact may have even been the first episode, the GTRs are all unique, and that's not the case with the Skylines. With the Skylines there are plenty of needless ones, with the GTRs they are all genuinely different, but for the sake of it, plus because it's a popular car and there are still some which some people haven't tried, let's take a look at the R35. So this one's also going to be a bit different because I am actually going to feature every single car because there are only 7 different versions, non-racing ones, that is. So let's get straight into it with 2001. So as I just alluded to, the first car in our selection comes way back in 2001 when the R34 was still technically around, and this list will span all the way up to 2014, of course with the Nismo. But first of all we have a car which a lot of people haven't used. Maybe they have on older games like Gran Turismo 4, which if memory serves was when this was first introduced. It's always been a fairly expensive car, 1 million credits on Gran Turismo 6, but to show my cards a little bit, this may well be my personal favourite R35 of them all. It's not the best, but it is a very good one. And the main standout about this particular car, the 2001 Motor Show concept version, which we're not even told the engine of or anything like that, it's the lightest of them all. It weighs only 1,253 kilos, which is literally 100 kilos or close enough lighter than all of the others, even the Spec V. That's impressive. That is something to be very strongly noted. And when I was driving all of these cars to make the replays for this video, I noted that the concept has far better handling than most of them as well. Now, the R35s aren't bad handling cars anyway, but they all have a tendency to feel heavy. That is not the case with this one. So if you do get the chance to use and to buy this initial concept version, definitely give it a go. You might just be surprised by how good it is. Top end speed is not quite as strong. It's about 265, 270 miles per hour without NOS or draft, but it does have a lot less power. 951 horsepower, 822 pound-feet, but you're still looking at over 750 horsepower per ton fully tuned. It's no slouch, of course, so if you haven't tried it, definitely do so. What then about the next phase of the concept program with 2005? Well, 2005 brought us the next development, the GTR Proto, and in terms of its visual style, those 4 years made a huge difference, because this one looks much closer to the actual production car. Now, it looks like it might be a full premium, but that's the funny thing, and I believe I touched on this in the specific review for this car from way back on the channel, and that is that this is a weird vehicle that not only is it not a premium, it doesn't have an interior camera at all. It's not that it's black, there's just nothing. It skips straight to bonnet cam instead, which is very strange indeed, but it's not that much of an issue in the long run, unless you hate using anything but cockpit cam, of course, which I know some people do, but most of us could probably just improvise. As far as pricing, it drops a lot over the previous year, down to 430,000, but that's still a whole lot more than any of the ones to come after this. And what do you get from that? Well, you get a power hike. It's still under 1,000, but 986 isn't exactly lacking. It does, funnily enough though, have less torque than the initial 2001 car, 780 pound-feet to the 822 on that one, so quite a bit less. It is a lot heavier as well. And unfortunately, that's the part of this car's trend that would continue, because it weighs up around 1,400 kilos, which, like most of the others in this list, is a lot higher than that initial concept car. The horsepower per ton also drops, and in fact it has the lowest horsepower per ton of all of these GTRs. Would I recommend buying this one? To some degree, yeah. It's kind of an undervalued car, especially in online top speed racing around Route X. It's pretty good around corners. It basically feels kind of like the 2007 GTR, the standard version. So if you like that, sure, give it a go. If you like the style, give it a go. Apart from that, it doesn't really bring anything radically new to the table. You can still get it up around 290 miles per hour pretty easily, so sure, give it a try if you fancy it. Next up then, we move into the final phase of pre-production GTRs in basically ready-to-go form with the Black Mask. A lot of people like this car. It certainly stands out alongside its kind of spiritual sibling, the Black Mask version of the Corvette C7. But this is an expensive car still. It's a 250 grand machine, but still, that's a quarter of the price of the original concept. It's a lot less than the Proto, and you do get even better numbers. It's more powerful, for instance, than the normal 2007 GTR. That has 1020 horsepower, this has 1035. This also has more torque, and it doesn't weigh that much more. And funnily enough, overall, it actually has more horsepower per ton than the production version. So it's an interesting car. It's not difficult to see why people like this one, because it's not just different, it is genuinely good. For me personally, I thought it was a bit too gimmicky, but it's a good car, for sure. The handling is a little bit heavier than some of the others, but if you like the alternative look, sure, give it a try. It's still very competitive. You're just spending a lot more than you really need to. Next then, we move on to another car from 2007 again, but a very different one. Now we are in the production phase, the 2007 production GTR. This one is immediately notable because it is by far the cheapest of all of the cars on the list, with only the Black Edition even coming close, but even that's 20 grand more. 78,000 credits is really, really good value on this car, and that's usually the reason why I feature this one in lists to do with value for money instead of all the others, because it offers a very similar level of ability to all of the other cars here, but for a much lower price. So even though it's not quite the quickest, the amount of money that you save is such a huge advantage, especially if you're newer to the game. So with that aside, what else does it offer? Well, for the first time of all of these, you have the option of a flat floor, and that alone makes a massive difference to the upper PP level. 689 is serious territory, and it can compete at that level, even against some race cars. 1020 horsepower, 809 pound-feet, a little bit lighter than the Black Mask, as I said, but the horsepower per ton is still a little bit lower due to the drop in power. Overall, this is a superb car. It's probably the one which I would recommend for most people, especially newer drivers who have less cash. It will serve you very well. Personally, I like the look of this one more than all of the others because it has that simple, clean, initial production look, which has always been my favourite of the R35s. But we've got to move on to 2009. And when we do move on into 2009, we have one offering of the R35, but it's a spicy one, the Spec V. This is where it starts to get really interesting in the range, because we start to have these special editions and updated versions and more hardcore vehicles. This is basically the pinnacle of that for the earlier years. Strip out the back seats, you've got carbon fibre wing and skirting and rims and all this. It's certainly more focused around the track, and the weight, apart from the initial 2001 concept version, is the lightest of all of these. Even as far back as the Proto, it is lighter than all of those. Only the initial Tokyo Motor Show car is lighter, by a lot. It's a lot lighter than this, but still, 1,345 kilos, that's pretty good for a GTR. The horsepower per ton is quite good as well, a fraction under 800, which is the highest so far, so that speaks for itself. And interestingly, and this is something which you probably wouldn't expect, but although this car doesn't have the most power of all of the R35s, it is the highest so far, but it's not the highest of them all, it actually does have the most torque, even over the Nismo. This has more torque than the Nismo and more torque than the Black Edition. Very interesting. That's not something that I would have expected. And 853 pound-feet of torque is actually 10 pound-feet more than the Black Edition and 17 pound-feet more than the Nismo. So that's something to bear in mind. Plus, once again, you have the advantage of the flat floor, which skyrockets the PP level up to a fraction below 700, which is incredibly high territory for a road car, and it's justified. Even though it is a lot more expensive at 158,000 credits, that's still a good price. It's very good value for what it can do. It's an incredible track car. I would definitely give this one the edge over the 2007 car around a circuit, although I still prefer that car for the value. It's roughly half the price. But this one is a very good one. It's a car which surprisingly doesn't get as much use online as I would have assumed. I see more people driving stuff like the Black Edition than this one, which surprises me. I know it has its fans, well, plenty of them, but I would have thought even more people would use it. But speaking of that Black Edition, let's move into 2012. So now in 2012 we have the Black Edition, and although I said that the 2007 car is possibly the best all-round for just affordable value, I would say, if you consider all of the things that it's good at, the Black Edition is the best R35 in the game. And the reason why I say that is actually for multiple individual reasons. For one thing, 95,000 credits, although not the cheapest, is still a whole lot cheaper than many of the others, and for that 95 grand, which is still an amazing price, you get the highest PP level of all of the R35s, 703. It's one of the only road cars in the game which can go above 700. It's up there with stuff like the Huayra, the Veyron, and the Viper ACR. There are very few others that can, and it is justified at being at that level. In fact, the car that you can see me driving in the video is one of my most popular tunes that I've ever done, not necessarily in terms of video views, but from the feedback that I got from it. I know there are many of you guys who are still around on the channel who used to use this tune to destroy LMP cars, the Nissan GTR Special Project tune. Incredibly quick at the 700 pp level, especially for a street car. This is an incredible machine. It can easily hit around 300 miles per hour without even breaking a sweat. Over 1100 horsepower, the first of these to do that. The torque isn't exactly lacking, although it's not the highest, and the weight is lower than the Mask and the 2007, but of course higher than the Spec V. Plus the horsepower per ton is the highest so far. It's the first one to break over 800. It's a brilliant all-rounder. The fact that it can have a flat floor, whereas the Nismo can't, is another huge advantage, and that's the direct reason why the PP level is so high. So yeah, I would strongly recommend this one, but of course we have to finish out the list with the Nismo. And the Nismo, of course, from 2014, is popular for good reason. It's one of the most popular top-speed cars in the game, around Route X. It's easily up there with the Veyron and the Huayra. And again, as I said, it's for good reason. It's an incredibly quick car. In fact, according to friends that I've had tuning in the game and associates from over the course of GT6's online service, I believe this Nismo is actually the quickest road car in the game for top speed. I've seen people have it doing 312 miles per hour without slipstream or NOS or downhill, just on a flat road, consistently holding 312 miles per hour. I haven't come across any other car that could do that. So that's incredibly quick. I'm sure there are some, maybe somebody will claim that they can, but I haven't seen it proven, whereas for this one I have. Now, with that aside, what else do you get? Well, you get a pretty good deal, but to be honest, I've never been on the Nismo bandwagon like some other people have. People consider this to be like one of the best track cars out there. Personally, I find it a bit underwhelming around the track. It's not bad, but it's very heavy in its stock form, especially over the front end. I found the Black Edition to be far better through corners, the 2007 version even. The straight line performance is good, of course, but it's got 1170 horsepower in peak form. Of course it's going to be good. The weight is quite good. The torque is a little bit lower again than both the Spec V and the Black Edition, but of course the horsepower per ton is still the highest of them all, a fraction under 850, because although it isn't the lightest, it's got so much sheer power. And for 154 grand, it's well priced. The value isn't as good as the Black Edition, but it is slightly cheaper than the Spec V. The fact that this one can't have a flat floor upgrade is basically the only thing stopping it from being over 700 pp in that club with the Black Edition. Overall though, I personally find it to be an overrated car, unless of course I'm doing 720 miles per hour in it as I am in this video from the glitch. But that aside, I've never been on the Nismo train really. For me, the Black Edition is hands down the best of them all, and if I'm going to say ones that I think you should try, I would say the ultimate standouts of ones which you should definitely try are the 2001 Tokyo car, you will be shocked by how good that car is, especially around corners. Then I would say the 2007 normal production GTR, because it's such good value, and then the Black Edition, because the Black Edition is the strongest all-rounder, and of course the Nismo, but the only reason why I would recommend the Nismo is actually just because of its straight-line speed. The handling can easily be beaten by the Black Edition, especially with a flat floor. It doesn't even come close, in fact. But overall, they are certainly all unique, they're all worth checking out, they all have advantages and disadvantages, and it's a mix which manages to run the fine line of having a lot of variations, but without feeling repetitive, at least not for me, because each of these cars is at least genuinely different. We've got prototypes, concepts, test cars, upgraded variants, almost aftermarket level cars in the case of the Nismo. They are all interesting. Do I need them all? No. But I do appreciate the variety, at least, and there are only 7 of them, so it's nowhere near as bad as the Skylines. So overall, they're all worth a look. Those are the highlight ones for me, and so I'll see you guys next time. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.